want you to be free. I want us to be a self-governing people, not having to ask the white man or anybody for anything. All normal, healthy human beings want to be self-governing and self-determining. I want to have a black power. I want to have a black government. When I say black power, I'm talking about black freedom. I'm talking about big lip freedom. I'm talking about broad nose freedom. I'm talking about nappy hair freedom. I'm talking about boombox on your shoulder freedom. I'm talking about black freedom, freedom on our own terms.
So we jump right in, man, get this thing going. Appreciate both of you brothers coming. Know it's last minute, but I had the good brother Geechie coming through. So I want to take the opportunity to sit down with him. You and I have had several good conversations, right, over the last year and some change. And so when I thought about who else I wanted to be a part of this conversation, you came to mind. So I appreciate y'all both. So I always start out, man, when we start with you, Geechie, we work around, but, tell the folks, one, who you are, kind of what you're into, what your politics, ideology, or whatever you want to share with the people. But then after that, I try to ask everybody that I'm able to have a conversation with, what brought you to this point in your life? Like, how did you, whatever you identify with, was Black nationalism, Pan-African, whatever it is, right? Going back to as far as you can remember, like, what was that transitional time where it clicked, and kind of then give us a little bit of the process from that click to today.
I go by Geechie, y'all. I'm originally from Charleston, South Carolina, and been seriously or intently organizing maybe since about 2006. When I was in college in Eastern Kentucky, working around coal mining issues.
Okay.
So even then, before I went to that college, I was already kind of getting on some of this, like, I guess, radical thought process. Some of the earlier books I read, The Debt by Randall Robinson, and that kind of like showed me, like, dang, like the whole country's built off of our work, our labor, life, intellectual resources. So I started reading things like that. I also read Gullah Geechie People Are Blessed by Re-Afrikanization.
Okay. I read that one.
It actually, so he did right before he transitioned, he was like actually in Baltimore talking about it, me and him. He did a new addition to it, so it's a thicker book now. But as I started learning more about Gullah, right, because I'm home and it's just natural stuff. Mm-hmm. And all through school, it's like, yo, you need to speak this type of English or whatever. So as I'm learning this actually culture, why they kidnap us and brought us over here, and why they want to, destroy the language and the culture. And it was a professor in college actually said, I'm gonna just take that whole language or that accent away from you. Wow. And she actually used to bring some other Gullah cats that went to school with me in the class for us to talk to each other. So it was kind of like they was making fun of us. And so I think that point kind of, made me want to look into why they want to destroy or readjust things. And I mean, that's pretty much what it was. But most of the things I'm into is like political organizing. All the content, whether I'm consulting, writing, producing shows, organizing, any of these things, the goal is to push people into political education so that they can go into political organization, which will lead to political agitation. And then we can cut and see things shift. I would call myself a revolutionary, theoretically, ideologically, but we all know revolution has to take place on the physical ground as well. So intellectually, I want to help, get people there, do my part.
Gotcha. So was there, there's college, you there, right? But you were drawn to this organizing. Was there any experiences maybe in your childhood? Like I say for me, I just remember how much the combination between things happening in the 80s, because I grew up in the 80s primarily, and the language and the message that started to arise also in the music. Mm-hmm. Primarily for me, hip hop was in the music, period. heightened my awareness. And then now when my father's turning around and saying, "Here, read Wretched of the Earth," and I'm in single digits, and I'm like, yeah, this, and apartheid is going on in South Africa. We seeing it on television, not excuse me, really understanding it. But when I was ready, so same as you, when I hit a college campus, and the black students were kind of like, hey, this came natural, like, why don't we formulate a black student organization here? It wasn't one, was there anything, kind of in your upbringing coming up in Charleston? Was it any of the history of what Charleston is kind of informed that direction?
I mean, I think it was more, so my experience, I worked in, even when I was in high school, I was working, or interning, shall I say, at a news station, Channel 4 in Mount Pleasant. And so I've always been into like media, community type things. And I think with the debt, like reading the debt and kind of seeing how propaganda worked, I think that's what kind of set me off, because I've always been into like radio and television and stuff like that. And I remember how news stories got spun and then what didn't make news. Yeah. So I think that's kind of like what made me, even want to be a comm major in the first place. But when I started learning that, like, there's journalism and there's like Jared said, emancipatory journalism. Yeah. Right. And it can't be biased or unbiased and non-political. And so I think that in itself kind of set me in of defining our narrative, and those little things like the professor wanted to destroy my language. Those little things are me constantly seeing narratives being reshaped. So I think that's kind of what led me to, I guess, how I show up and what I see, because I was already in the media where I could see them, we go to an interview and something happened in the city, I could see them go right to the person who's probably least informed, and now I also could see them edit out things. So I guess seeing that
eye for it.
Yeah, kind of made me like, so what else is missing, or what else is being pieced together?
What's up? Little brother, tell people who you are.
My government name, or my enslaved name, is Kevin D. Haggard Sr., which that in itself is irrelevant, because my dad's last name was Riggins. But my good friends know me, the closest to me know Miss Khari, Damani, also Kofi. I have been the spook that sat by the door, kind of what you talking about. I worked in the corporate world a lot, worked in the school district with young people. And you said something else earlier. If your political views get known, your clock is ticking. So in my case, I would try to hide it, but because of who I am, they would eventually smell it on me. So it wouldn't be long for you out the door, or they're gonna trump up, so are you gonna get, they can make it to where you don't want to work there no more.
Gotcha.
So because and I don't go in with the blackfish and the Afro comb and none of that, I don't go in like that, but I tell the truth.
What clicked though to give you that smell? What was the thing that brought you to that point that's how you were showing up at work? Like what was that moment for you that?
You know what, man? I think we had kind of talked about this before. For me, I don't remember not having pride in my blackness. I know it's crazy. I might be the oldest. I'm probably the oldest. I know I'm the oldest person here. I'm 62. So they started busing in Louisville in '75, and I was among the first to get bused. And then white folks went crazy. They was burning up buses. They were attacking kids in school. We had to have National Guard on it, escort us. They went crazy. But even before that, because I was raised in, quote, unquote, the hood, where Muhammad Ali was raised, in the hood, I was in the bosom of blackness. It's crazy. So I don't have to explain it. I was in the bosom of blackness, and so everything around me, even I was in the church, but I was to a certain degree. I had relatives in the country, so the rural relatives, did the tobacco, the sharecroppers. So I remember seeing some of that. And worked in that as a kid, and so I was always in the bosom of blackness, and so I don't remember not having a black consciousness. Now it might sound crazy. I don't remember not having consciousness that I'm a black person, an African person, or in those days was Negro. I don't remember not having that. So when people ask me that, they like, I can't tell you when that was because I always knew. And then part of that was the conversations I heard the older black folk around me talking, you know. So they had this thing about they had this thing about who we were and our relationship to them.
Gotcha.
And you know, we heard that, you know, we heard it constantly, and we could see how they related to them when we were out and about, you know, with our parents and older relatives. And then it's another thing. You had a school when we came out here with the African Village.
Yeah.
And we went to your school. And I thought that was the most beautiful thing, man. But it also kicked the thought in me. We went to African Center schools, but we didn't call them that.
African school, that's right.
It was, you know, we went to black schools, man. And it was unconscious. So, you know, all of my teachers was black. All my classmates was black. A white child came to that school, they wouldn't last long usually. Yeah. They wouldn't. Even white substitute teachers, I remember in junior high school, they couldn't even last the whole day. They come around, we run on by there. We had a couple of white teachers though. You could tell they cared about kids. They wasn't afraid of us. They survived. But in fact, one of them was teaching my kids. It was kind of weird, you know, in high school. But these and he finally retired. But for the most part, it was just us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so when we bust and we eliminated we basically watered our culture down, you know, from the school standpoint. And I say as a person, man, integration kind of hurt us in some way. It helped us in some, but I think it hurt us more than it helped us. Because in a lot of ways, like I had a friend of mine who's passed on. He told me one day, he said, man, you think about, I don't remember nobody couldn't read when I was growing up. So I don't remember that. He said, we all had to read out loud. He said, I can't remember that. He was all black schools too, like me. He said, I don't remember that. And I thought, man, you know, you probably got a point there, man. You know, most of our people, you know, I'm sure there was some. I know there was some, but it wasn't prevalent, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Because those teachers, they cared about us, man. You didn't get sent home just for getting into a fight. You know what I'm saying? You might get the paddle, but you didn't get sent home.
Yeah, I think we got sense. I know. So for you, like growing up, explain Charleston. I grew up partially in Goldsboro, North Carolina. So we had a complete black side of town, and I didn't know nothing different. Like only time I could contrast it is the public pool was on the white side of town because we swam in rock quarries, and when the creek swole up good, you know, we get in there. But we wanted fresh water and springboards and all that. We venture over to the white neighborhood deep just to go. But that what he described, like unconsciously not knowing anything else. Was that true for you growing up in Charleston? I think when we hear Charleston, because just when I get introduced to Charleston is Denmark, that's his Gullah Jack, his rebellion, his revolt, and then even in college, right? Chucktown was different. So you know, is that also your experience, or how was those relationships?
So for the most part, I think every city has this way of pushing black people into a space, right? So even if which we often romanticize Tulsa, Greenwood neighborhood in Tulsa, Oklahoma. Yeah. Tulsa is predominantly white, and there's a small neighborhood of black people. So we always had this insulation, rather it be pushing us to North Charleston, certain parts of Mounts Corner, and in the country area. That's always been a thing. Now, in terms of one of the things that when he said, I was thinking about, we always have this idea of blackness and Africanness. Like even my uncle used to run with Africa Bambaataa, right? And so I always knew these different things about Africa or Black, but I also think sometimes the nuance of what Black looked like is what we tend to miss. And also the cultural component of it is what we just stay in. No power, no control of resources. Like even when we, romanticize Gullah people, there was a period of time where we like pushed into one location, and although we was, surviving together, some people think it's thriving together or thriving. Again, same thing with Black Wall Street. They think it was thriving, but if 98% of the people are poor, then it can't be thriving. And so I think there's always been this thing of, parts of towns that are Black, right? Like North Charleston is where you're gonna see a whole lot of Jamaican, back to Green. You're gonna see a whole bunch of Black people. But when you go downtown, you'll see them walking around, but white people own everything on there. And even some of the places, I think if we're honest, like sometimes when those Black towns still doesn't have much to do with ownership.
No.
So we might be a Black town, but
Just population.
yeah, we might be renting from you.
Absolutely.
So it's the same thing in Charleston, like, Charleston, North Charleston, Mount Pleasant. Like you can go to any of these places and you'll find Black areas. But like I said, it's always not connected to the larger economy. It's like a little sub economy that gets the trickles. They're going to take your tax dollars and then build their stuff with it.
I think for me, when I look at it, I only look at it, and I agree with you, right? I think that maybe the difference, like still poor. I look at it from the social lens and the times, right? Of how I look now, working in education and seeing how even in neighborhoods where people don't even speak to their neighbors, like much less really know them. And how children, like I like here, we haven't moved from here because there's a real sense where children just have always played hard together. Our girls, as they grow up, is a new group now. You got to slow down for real coming through here because they really out there playing. And just seeing that go, oh, yeah. But then I've been in other places like, where the babies? Where they outside of you? The child fighting. I done broke up fights and brought a child home and the mama cussed me out like, that's foreign. So I'm really speaking from that lens when I look at, if I got a romanticized view, it's strictly from that social big mama. I remember this so-and-so always having some cornbread or something. You welcome to it. Like it wasn't no the locking the doors and this idea of your business versus my business. Don't get me wrong, grown folks still tell you mine, yours as a child. But every child was everybody's business. And the nothing got in the way of that. Now, there was politics, even on that side of town, right? Even there were Black bourgeois, aspiring bourgeois. There were, you had all of that, even in the mix, even in your family, right? You had all of that. But
Still do?
So it still do. So do you think? I know you're grounded in political power, being where we need to put our focus, right? Do you think that's the greatest challenge of our time right now, creating or pushing or developing a mass political education? Or I throw something else out there just because I know it's big for me. So I won't act like it's not big for me. I just look at this identity crisis, and I'll be honest with you, I don't know which one is more prevalent to me or more important, or however you want to put it to me. And when I engage people, and it may just be case by case, but just kind of throwing it out to you guys, like, but I start with you, kind of know you, everything you push through your platforms and make sure you let people know your platforms too. But, how do you balance that out? Is it just, it's not even close for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think if we look hard enough, we'll see identity is political too. So
absolutely.
So yeah. I wouldn't separate the two, but I think even with like nationalism, And so it's a couple things. I just had a conversation like this because I was talking about there's a vegan restaurant in Charlotte that I feel like I mistakenly ate at last time I was here. And this is why, like, so I walk up to it and I see my man across the way selling, jewelry, and then another black man selling herbs, and I see this vegan spot. I see a bunch of African people, but it's South Africans that own the vegan spot.
Oh yeah, I know exactly. You
And
know that. You over there in North Charlotte, what they call it, no doubt. Yeah, I know exactly.
I saw it today. I saw it today.
All the vendors is out there. Yeah,
all of them. But
wow.
like you would think it's.
I had that, but my first time in there, my first conversation was with the sister behind the counter. Where they from in Africa? And as soon as she said, I was like, oh yeah,
white South Africa.
White South Africa. But she tried to push it.
Yeah.
Like, oh no, they African. Like,
so
Afrikans.
Africans.
Oh, yeah.
But like,
Afrikans.
so I got here last night and I'm like looking for some food. I'm like, yo, and then I see the space. I saw the website and it says, we stand with Ukraine. I'm like, what's going on here? Yeah. And so white South Africans saying they support Ukraine, right? And then they in Charlotte with black staff wearing dashikis and so
because Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, so that made me think of like this. I mean, when I was in Charlotte, it was like, Charlotte gonna be the new Atlanta. They kept saying that. I don't know if they still say that, but I would remind people like Atlanta is probably the most convoluted city in the country. Like they already have the biggest wealth gap, right? But you would think black people are doing it in Atlanta, but they're not, right? So when I say
maybe on the streets.
Maybe, right? Like for instance, Geechie, I remember when Geechie said, "Man, I own half Atlanta." You can Google search the building. Yo got 2 buildings.
Right.
Yeah.
But so I think the social and the political can't be. You have to have some type of power. Like for instance, we're doing it. Well, do you control your water sources? No. Okay. Well, do you redirect the tax dollars? No. Okay. But I mean, so you can't really say that. You have to have some kind of a way to feed yourself, some kind of way to educate yourself, in the interest of your culture. So I can't separate them.
Yeah.
So when you look at hegemony, the agendas, they're all supposedly separate, but they're connected. It still ends in hegemony. So the political agenda, political domination, economic and ecology. That's we kind of forget about. That's why the water barrier is
huge. Yeah.
Ecology, economics, socially and culturally. All of it is all connected. So I don't see a connection. My problem comes when we have conversations based off of one thing. Like I had a little somewhat tussle with some people back at home because they, the Gullah culture and the Gullah. I said, why do you think people were speaking Gullah? To politically organize. Yeah. To keep them out of the business of politically organized. So you can't just have the culture without political organizing.
Absolutely.
So I don't see them as, none of it is disconnected. And it kind of goes back to, ironically, we talk about Mama Ani and why she probably had a issue with James Smalls and them, is because she taught you in your Rugu how and why we should dichotomize things, and all is connected. Yeah, so you can't dichotomize this black man running the most white parasitic hegemonic nation in the world. You can't do that. That's not how it works.
Let the circle be unbroken. It is all connected.
Yeah, it's all connected. And I think that's where our problem comes at. We disconnected again with W.E. Du Bois and Garvey. We disconnected. And we think they ain't trying to achieve the same thing, just a different route. And I think that's where our problem comes in. Like by saying, which one is more important? I mean, if I'm working on ecology and you're working on education, it's both equally important. We just got to be blood in together. Yeah. I don't got to be an expert over there. But
so do you? So we in, right? So keep it on, and jump on anytime, man, please. Keeping on with Marimba Yani. She has this, what I think is one of my favorite lectures by her, where she goes into paraphrasing, know who's in the room, right? Don't assume, right? You go in, you see the red, black, and green, you see So and then you go, oh yeah, brother, good. And you make these assumptions about who's in the room. And it's only until you start to talk about what our end game is. Like if we all getting on the bus and stopping, and each time somebody get on the stop, we evaluate what they got on, how they talking or whatever, right? When they get on the bus, we can make this assumption that they're gonna get off the stop when we get off, right? But that's not true. It's gonna be people who get off way before where you going, wherever that may be, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So do you think that even though all of these are equally important, what is the thing that then should bind and connect us towards what end?
Culture.
You say culture, and why do you say culture? Because that's a big one. I already know where this is going. Why do you say culture?
Well, because in Malcolm X said, you know, Hajj Malik El Shabbat said. He said they don't, and I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
We don't catch hell because we Baptist, we Muslim, or we Christian or whatever. We catch hell because we African, we black. And I heard Brother Dr. Umar Johnson say same thing. He broke it down the same way. And it really comes down to me that the culture is the thing that glues us together. Mm-hmm. And I've seen this on the ground. Now, back in Louisville, there's it used to be an old Sears building. And right now, it's an African mall. And what it was, these continental Africans, and you might have been there, if you had been in the city, continental Africans came in, this building was sitting empty, and they went in there and created a mall. Mm. And the thing that hit me was, now we've been here for 500 years, we ain't created no mall. They've been here for 2 weeks, they created a mall. And what you see is, what did that was culture. Now there's a little more to it. They on a mission. Usually they over here. They're not the Pookies and Ray Rays from the continent. You know.
That's a big point that we can't never forget.
The Pookie and the Ray Rays from the continent.
The continent has those people.
No, but sometimes.
No, I just ain't never heard of it, brother.
They're not the defeated.
A lot of
times are the elite and the most educated.
Yeah, even when we say that, even when we always just say like the Asian.
It's important to identify. I'm glad you did that.
But it is culture. Yeah. I think it is one of the things that kind of does that. They have more cultural continuity.
Gotcha.
You know, now they've been bitten by the same dog we've been bitten. I'm not deceived to believe that they free in their mind. No, they're not. Because I know.
Do you think it's culture, or do you think it's this connection to a national identity? I'm Nigerian. I'm Ghanaian.
No, I don't.
He's Nigerian, and we over here, and we need to bond together.
No, because this mall wasn't like from one country. They had brothers in there from Somalia. They had brothers in there from Nigeria. They had brothers in there from all over the continent, and even they had some Black Americans in there. See what I'm saying? This was seriously Pan-Africanist, and so, but they were the center of it. You know, we Black Africans have been here for 500 years. We weren't the ones that did that.
We weren't the
They did that.
Which they
and I'm saying that that's just an example. Culture is the things that you do that, like language is a reflection of culture. How you feed yourself, how you cook, and you know how you feed yourself. We went to Ghana. There's a certain way they cook food, which by the way you can see where we get ours at when you go there. A certain way they cook food, certain way they wear clothes. Young man who's Fante, one of the economists, was telling me when we was in Ghana. He was telling me about how he got this cloth from his father, and now he's wearing it, and his father had to show him how to wear it. He said, "We don't wear it." How did he put it? He said, "It's kind of like it becomes a part of him." And the way they put it on, I can't. The phrasing they used was basically saying that, and it's certain things that holds them together. Now there is a cultural continuity across the continent, even though too many folk are caught up in tribalism, you can see some cultural continuity, and even Sheikh Hamid wrote a book about that, cultural unity of Black Africa. And we have it, but we have it watered down because we've been conditioned. I was listening to Dr. Wade Nobles on the way over here, and he was talking, some brothers was discussing something he was talking about. And he was talking about the sheepdog and the sheep. I don't know if y'all heard that before.
Absolutely.
The sheepdog
And I heard the fish one too.
I hadn't heard the fish one, but I heard the sheep.
We saw what a fish living in a freshwater pond. That's one of my favorites.
He was talking about that, and he was talking about and they were talking about how we've been conditioned to be where we are. Even if you're conscious and you know that you got a white mindset, and you got to do something about it. Even if you know it, you still might behave inappropriately. Even if you know it, unless you consciously decide you're going to do something about it.
Gotcha.
So
I don't disagree with culture. I just maybe need to ask a question to see if we talking the same language.
Yeah.
All right, let's go.
So the purpose of culture is what?
To feed what Baba Small, and I agree with him on this, is to feed yourself. You said this earlier. Feed yourself, educate yourself, provide security for yourself, clothe yourself. Those things. Culture is the things that you do to help your survival, and also it keeps your traditions going.
So I'll jump in and badly quote Amos and Wilson, and that culture meets the needs of people and solves their problems in a way. I know you said
that's the best way to say it.
It's the immune system of a people.
So meeting the needs of the people, right? I would suggest that. That's why I'm saying I'm glad you made that point. If you compare the average African in America to African elites that have the capacity and the resources to move here, you're missing the boat. Because not only do they have the capital and the capacity, they also have political clout, and they also have something that the white power structure can use. We ever heard of model minority?
Yeah.
So the elite that comes over here, the power structure can incentivize and give them these things, and tell you like, oh, why?
And that's true for all groups. The whole thing that we grew up with, the Asian boy. It's when they send their best and brightest. And that's the Pookie and the Ray Rays of the continent. That's right. The same is true for the Patels and this is what you're not competing against.
Even with us, when we go over there, if you go another place, like you have the capacity to move that, but the majority of them not. But I would suggest that yes, culture, but then we have to talk about what culture is. Mm-hmm. Is culture maintaining white hegemony, or is it destroying white hegemony? Yeah. I can't tell you that a black elite from another country come to this place to maintain capitalism. Did they create a cooperative, or is it structured like American business? Not a cooperative. Do they provide jobs? Do they change the economic stability of the people? No. Like, so if you're benefiting the individual person, then there's not necessarily culture. And I'll go back to Black Wall Street. Mm-hmm. You take Adams, you take O.W. Gurley, and you say, well, what's the culture of Greenwood? You would probably say Tulsa is what the small 10% do. You'll forget about the rest of the people. There's 90 people. 98% of the people was living in poverty. Yeah. Shanty buildings falling apart. 98% of the people work for white people. Yeah. Mm-hmm. During segregation, you can't buy something from a white store. So if Sundiata start to sell milk, he gonna have to probably buy the milk for $3 and he gonna sell it for $5 or whatever. He gonna try to get his profit back. The white boy milk costs 25 cents. Mm-hmm. So imagine you going to work for the white boy all day, getting your labor exploited, and then he get you get your money. You got $2, and you can't buy the white milk. So you're gonna have to break bread with him. That money ain't coming back to you. Right. So when we talk about culture, which part of those things are we saying our culture? The exploited 90% or the elite 10%? And I can't say that it should be the 10%. We don't do math like that. Yeah. The majority rules, right? So if the majority of people live in this way, then that's our culture. And another thing, if your culture is maintaining your domination, then that means you ain't create the culture. That's something that was given to you.
Absolutely.
So you can't say, chitlin, and pork and chop, that's our culture. No, like this is something that was given to us.
I agree.
Speaking English. In fact, I don't know if I'm gonna get in trouble saying this, but if you Gullah culture is only created based off of the situation that you're in. I mean, because if we wasn't in this situation, would we still speaking now?
But I ain't really disagreeing with that. But I also don't have a problem with anything that may have anything good, right? That may have been birthed out of a condition, right?
I'm cool with that.
Because we owned it.
It has to be beneficial for us.
No, I agree. And I think in that sense,
But he did say the good.
Just the example you gave of language, though, I do think for that is it was a good. So I think like we talked about before when I sat down with some other brothers, we're not the only displaced Africans. Africans have been displaced even on the continent since the beginning of the time. For war reasons, for whatever reasons, for famine reasons, for whatever reasons, we migrated, moved, we went to another place, and when we went into that place, according to the ecology of that place and what was available, we started to develop a way of living. Beliefs, ideology, cosmology, right? Based on that. And then our language may have changed, even based on that, who we came in contact with in that region, based on what we brought with us in the region. And so this idea of a group of Africans being stranded, right, along some sea islands and saying, hey, all right, let's go. And whatever that looked like, I'm okay with. I would never take that away, but I still recognize what it is. Now, don't get me wrong. But there's also me and one of my good comrade kind of going back and forth right now about this idea of hoodoo, right? And I don't prescribe to hoodoo as this religious thing, right? I don't even get into the idea about some love spells and some money magic and none of that. I'm talking about in its inception, it was birthed as a tool of liberation, to use plants, medicine, to poison, right? Kill your slaveholder, right? Early on, this is what we do. Even if they did create fetishes that may or may not have worked, charms that may or may not have worked, the spirit of why they were fabricating that thing, I'm okay with. It was to protect me from or use this to attack that. And I only had one objective, right? That was to be liberated. Same thing when we talk about Haitian voodoo. It was birthed in the spirit of liberating an island from a condition. Can
I ask y'all a question? Though?
Yeah.
Is culture static, or is it dynamic?
No, it should never be.
And that's what I'm saying. So what you saying, basically, based on circumstances, that still could be culture, even though
it can. But I think what Geechie's asking, and Amos asked it, who most benefits from your cultural expressions?
Well, my father-in-law years ago, I asked him. I said, he was talking about. I told him, I said, we're the reason why we survive and everything, because we more. I look at the so-called Native Americans, they're just wiped out. Look at, wherever they go, they wipe them out. But they haven't been able to wipe the African out. I said, so I think that we the strongest people. He said, no, man, that's not what it is. He said, we the most adaptive people. We the most adaptable people.
Have been the most adaptive.
I had never thought about that until he said it. So, he's right. We do adapt. We do.
Yeah. We had a long head start over a lot of people to get that. But let me say this.
We resist too. So because adapters,
that's
we
right.
resist. We do both.
Yeah. I separate adaptation from like being resilient. I don't like the resilient thing, because that just means you can take a blow.
Yeah.
Right.
Adaptation means you adjust to prevail. You make the necessary adjustment to win, not to just exist or be there, to live, to still be breathing, right? It's to prevail. But let me add, and I might get more trouble than you. I don't think so. But I say trash hip hop, right? And here's why, to your point, right? And even the point you're making. Like, we created the thing out of a condition. Whatever that condition was that gave birth to hip hop and rap. It's no longer, that thing has been co-opted.
Yes, sir.
And now no longer benefits us.
You're right.
If we go to 90-10, right? Is 90% of it beneficial versus 10% of it's beneficial versus the 90% that's not. I don't know the actual numbers. But if a cultural expression is no longer serving, should we still hold on to it as a part of our culture?
No.
So that's I don't know. I got this love-hate relationship right now.
I say no.
Because as I say earlier, it was the wise intelligence. It was the Karis Ones, the Rakims, you know what I mean? Like, this is what helped Lakim Shabazz, the Thug Mahdi's, right? To inform me to go, oh, maybe I need to look deep into who I am, right? So I got that. But can I keep giving it a pass? But because of my own personal past connection to a time when this was happening, I don't know. So I'm just kind of, when do we get rid of something that even we created in a condition or a time that was a culture expression that may have served us at the time? Do we abandon it? Do we just let it go? Again, and going back to the hoodoo thing, because now they say, well, we should get rid of it because it's tied to slavery. It was something that we did, but I'm saying we still oppressed. So should we say that it's stagnant and keep it the way it became outside of the shadow slavery? Or should we say, nah, let's go back to the root of it and give it that boost that it needs so it can have the same type of responsiveness that it had at one point now? Because I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. But how do y'all see that? What parts? And when we talk about Africa, I remember hearing Phil Valentine, who I don't struggle with, I don't like him, say, he wrote this book called Wounded Womb. I did this video, wrote this book called Wounded Womb. And I remember on the video, him arguing with a sister from the continent about clitorisectomy. And him giving some time period, I don't know what time period, they always exaggerate. Oh, we've been doing this on the continent for 10,000 years, right? And I'm like, that don't make it right, because it's old, two, because it's on the continent.
How does he know it's been done? How does he know it's been done for 2,000 years? What I'm saying.
But I mean, I think that's the thing. Like, so culture, education, right? So purpose of culture and education are very similar: to solve people's problems, to advance people, protect them. But same things are ideologies like African centered. Mm-hmm. That's going to change and evolve. How do you center the collective of African people and move in the best interest of those African people? Yeah. Not center a African person. I think that's kind of where we stuck at. Yeah. Because we think about like, oh, well, it's black owned or it's black whatever, so that means it's good. Or black man did this. And so I think being clear about culture and what it does and how and if it centers the collective African people, if it's scientific, right? If it's something that could be proven that works or doesn't work. Because again, I think it's just a word that most people don't really understand or internalize. And they just, so you can have Issa saying, I'm rooting for everybody black. Because that's like culture, right? Yeah, so a black capitalist.
Do it for the culture.
Yeah, the black sister, the first black sister who make nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
She the first black sister.
But that's what's happening.
Yeah,
that's literally what's happening. So even think about this in this context, and going back to the business you're talking about, right? I have a real issue with this idea of buy black. Right? This push for buy black. One is way too general and vague. Right? I'm just not gonna buy something from a person just because they're black, and you shouldn't be trying to push me to do such a thing, right? 2, if you say we're in a capitalistic system, which I hear all the time, right? And we got to deal with it anyway. So you might as well figure out how to benefit from it. I'm sure you've heard that argument. And that seems to be the push, right? So we're going to, all right, but if you're going to truly practice capitalism, one, identifies a resource and a labor group, or a group to exploit its labor and its resources from.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't do it from within. It doesn't build wealth from its people. It looks at a group of people that it can sell something from or extract something from for its own benefit. So we're going to truly operate in this capitalistic model and follow the model, then we need to find a group to exploit. We should be out here pimping and selling MAGA hats, right? Like, we should find, all right, let's try to get this money from this group for our benefit. You can't try to build wealth from the poor people. So this whole idea of buying black is pushing this idea for a few people who become business savvy enough to become enriched, because they didn't become wealthy, become enriched off of, even when you talk about that, the markup. The model tell you to mark it up 3 times. So if I bought it for 3, I gotta sell it for 9 in the market. They look at me like I'm crazy. I currently have product I can't put even in black-owned shops because of the markup that they need to have for their overhead, and I won't have this contradictory price on a product that I produce, right? Like, oh, so I get it from Brother Sundiata for $10, but I gotta get it from you for $30. Like, I had to put but it's in the store, so the store need it. Then they gonna try to convince me, bro, why don't you? Because they selling it here for this. So but I know how much it costs me, and that don't make no sense. That right there, what you trying to get me to charge for a T-shirt? It's not gonna happen for me, right? But that's what I get in this whole push by black, even with the brother Jay Morrison, right? It's like, this is insane. So you got all these millionaire, billionaire friends, but when you lost this fake tier 2 hedge fund, right? It ain't nothing but a crowdfunding. You reaching out to poor, struggling, working class people for their $500. What you need? What you need my $500 for when you know all of these rich black folks that you can use as a startup base? When they have, correct me wrong, when white folks have their hedge funds, do they build this hedge fund off of poor, struggling, working class whites?
No.
Now maybe they labor all the way down the line, right? But not they startup capital.
I think so. Black people are calling, we have to participate in capitalism. Is they really trying to say retailism, right?
Yes.
This guy owns the means of production and he owns the minerals, and I'm going to use it to sell it back to my people.
Yes.
And I meant to say sell it black to my people.
Mm-hmm.
So we're using it, right? And so we just keep go back to it again. I'm growing up and I see how the news spins stuff, and so I'm still here today seeing how we just don't get the full story.
Yeah.
Like, and we have celebrities, and some of them, unfortunately, I know personally, who can share stuff and they'll have millions and thousands of followers regurgitating it. So when you say so and so is a millionaire, does he own stock in a white man's company who's a billion, a trillion, or whatever there? And if can he pull that money out and have it right now? A lot of them don't even have that money.
No.
So for instance, when you have Steve Harvey, he said this on Earn Your Leisure, he was up 50 million. Mm-hmm. He's 50 million. He had a tax debt of 10 million. And him and his wife stressed him out. And I mean, I don't do good at math, but I'm just saying, if you got 50 million, throw the 10 away and be like, yo.
Right.
But that means you ain't got the 10 if you're stressing out.
Stressing out, yeah. I remember.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, this Negro is saying this on an Earn Your Leisure platform to inspire the audience to buy tickets to their investing event.
Yes.
So, Steve, you said you're up 50, but you ain't really up 50. Now you're down 10. How you gonna make that money back, brother? Logically, invest, right? Because that's what you're selling.
Yeah.
He didn't invest.
No.
Family Feud, hosting. So it's like you telling poor people, you charging poor people thousands of dollars.
And selling us big suits.
Thousands of dollars and telling you to be like, oh, yeah, y'all just investing money. Because the reality is, them cats make money off of telling you how to make money.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And they still only be investing money. Because this stuff is just public stuff. You can look, man, like I mean, Google is I know people do confirmation bias, but it's really easy to find shit. And like we got a think tank. If I got a couple people in the think tank, like I'm telling you, I can ask them right now, what Sunday I ate yesterday? He got it.
Yeah.
Right? So it's easy to find, but people ain't really looking. It was this little family, the black and white woman. Black African woman and an African man. You probably seen the memes around. They bought some land in New York and it had like I can't remember, but it had like hotel type stuff on a bunch of land, and they sold it for like 13 million or something like that.
I didn't see that.
And everybody's like, "Oh, there we go, black people selling our land again." Again, if you just look at the details, they went into partnership with somebody else, bought some land that was gonna lose them money. They ain't got no money. They just, like, for instance, if you can get with your partner and take out a loan and put $500,000 on it, but you still owe $8 million. If you sell it real quick, sell it for 13, you're gonna make your money back. You got to pay the state, but you ain't really had no money. And if you would have kept the land, you would have lose money. Yeah. So black people are talking about all this and that and that. Ironically, the sisters from Burkina Faso, she's a model. She's gonna say Thomason Cara is one of my favorite leaders, but she got a nonprofit organization. It's public information, but she the only one getting paid. All the black people in Africa.
She not following the upright man. She not following the upright man. He can't be. Not the guy who uses the president's car and stay in the... Yes.
Watch this. So, just Google.
Yeah.
She's being bankrolled by a white company who her husband's sitting on the advisory board for Africa. So, wow. I mean, it's easy. It's really easy to see, we don't, that's why you got...
Most folks not going to do that. And so, to your point about the narrative, that was sell. And even that, I'm telling you, when I came to the conclusion about the difference with money, young boy listened to this tape interview. It was on a cassette tape with Rayford Edmonds. I don't know if y'all familiar with Rayford Edmonds, big time drug dealer in DMV area. But either way, he's doing this interview in jail, prison, what have you. And they asked him about athletes, entertainers that he hung out with. He's like, "Oh, you ain't got nothing on me." He said, "I can go home and touch $2 million. None of them cats I was hanging with can go put their hands on $2 million. Like, it's like, they can't, they don't have it. They don't have that capital. And even when they do it, it's an evaluation of your potential earnings for this infrastructure that you represent. Even when they do Jay-Z, they're going to evaluate his earning capacity, his labor. They're going to base his, right, what they say his worth is based on what they know they can extract from his image, his likeness, his voice, whatever it is and his product. So as we wrap this up, let's talk a little bit about from each of your perspective. If you had a joy, right? The genie's in the bottle. You get one wish though for black folks. What is something you wish we would be doing, or what do you wish for? Well, maybe it's better for me just to ask what do you, if you got what you desire for black folks? I get the whole, it ain't what you want, but just entertainment. If you got for what you wanted for black folks, what would that? It's as detailed as possible. What does that look like? I'm gonna go with you first, brother. I'm gonna start calling you Kofi. Can I just? I ain't been calling you Kofi.
Khari's cool.
Khari.
Yeah.
Khari.
Yeah.
Brother Khari. What does that look like?
First of all, I'm a pan African.
All right.
So and what that means for me is I want to see all black folk prosper and till self-determination. Now, to do that, the continent of Africa's got to be free, got to be liberated. And right now, it's under neo-colonialism, and then the Chinese actually joining in on the feast. Continent of Africa has to be free. So what it looks like for me is there's no borders in Africa, especially in the parts of Africa where we African, original African black people dominate. Where the Arabs at, let them have it. But where we need to be one people, one currency, one military, and no borders, and doing business amongst each other, and be able to move freely on that continent amongst each other. If George Floyd, if the continent of Africa was, by the way, back up on that, the so-called United Nations, which is really not United Nations, has this Security Council, and there's no African country that has a seat on that Security Council, and the Security Council makes all the real decisions, and they have the veto power, which you all know that. If the continent was united, then they'd have power to be able to say we demand a seat on the Security Council. Actually, they could vacate the United Nations and create their own thing. But I'm saying it needs to be united. It needs to be one. And we get mistreated in this hemisphere and around the world because our Mother Africa, is on its knees. And it can't come to our rescue. So as a Pan-Africanist, I want to see all African people around the world do well. But it starts with our homeland. So I want to see that prosper. That's what I would like to see for us.
Gotcha.
I mean, I think I would just want people to disabuse themselves out of the world of make-believe. I mean, I feel like if we, with anything, again, if I say the purpose of education is to solve problems, and you find that, this thing that you bought is not working, I think you're going to either watch a YouTube video to try to make it work, or read the book that come with it.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like that's what we're doing. I feel like we try to put it together, right? It don't work, then we discourage, oh yeah, it ain't gonna work, I already tried it. That's not how it works, right? So, I mean, I can't say that I want the collective of African people free, but I can't tell you I root for everybody who's black. And I can't tell you I want all of them to be survive, because Blaise Compaoré is doing his thing.
I should.
Ubuntu is doing his thing.
I
Right?
agree.
So I can't say that. And I'm also not, we talking about the spook the other day and how Lee Daniels might, jack it up a little bit, well, a lot. But one of the things, I was in Birmingham, the UK, doing some work there, and we was watching the spook as a community, and there was a white lady who was in there with her child who was biracial, and
That's the spook that set by the
spook
door.
was at my door, yeah. And at the end, the white lady was like, what is he gonna die? Like, what? She was expecting him to die, and she was like, well, I can see how he killing the white people, but like, I mean, he killed his own friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, it's okay for us to know that all African people don't want to see this thing switched up.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, shit.
And so I definitely would want people to study our revolutionaries, study what protracted struggle means, and then just get away from anything that is what we would consider the world of make-believe. So instead of trying to circulate some black dollar which doesn't grow wealth, you'll be getting political power. Instead of speaking truth to power, you want to organize political power.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So I don't want you to be a celebrity with millions of people and you go on TV and start saying some fly shit on TV.
Yeah. When
you could just be in a community organizing people to back the fly shit up, right? So if you be like Coca-Cola, I'm gonna need you to do this by Monday or you ain't getting this no more. So I want people to organize for political power. Join an organization, join some study groups, and have an analysis that makes sense as opposed to something that just sounds good.
I should.
Gotcha. So just mention what you got going on where people can connect with you.
So I'm kind of old, so I don't do too many social medias. I
Yeah,
got Facebook and Instagram. I think I got a Twitter, but I don't know what's going on with it. But Geechie Motivator, Geechie, y'all. We have a think tank where we have African people across the globe. We have in the UK, Africa, the United States, Costa Rica. If I'm thinking of all of them, but Black African women, men, gender non-conforming, people who identify as African. We get together, we study, we build projects together, and just trying to push people into one political organization, but political education, but into political organization. So you can find me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Also on part of Black Power Media on Fridays at 8 a.m. in East Coast time. We have a show with myself, Jared Ball, and Diallo. And the goal is just, stay with current topics, but, disabusing people from bullshit and get them into more political analysis of things. So you might see us watching movies and showing us how to critique it, or might be talking about, buying power, which Jared wrote a book on there.
Wonderful book.
Black businesses, whatever.
Black buying power. Tell them, stop arguing so much and let you get in more.
No, man. Listen, when I'm in a space, I know these are elder scholars. So
sometimes that too. I'm 52.
Yeah.
I don't consider myself no scholar, but I'm somewhat of I'm at least as elder as they are.
Yeah.
They gotta know when to. All right, we don't agree, and then let the young brother jump in there and play Trump. But I do appreciate what the I've learned a lot from you and the late brother Asafo and the Body Build think tank. I learned a lot from Black Power Media and everybody that's on there. I'm appreciative. We got our own African Liberation Media with Brother Amos, my elder Mkaru, and Gullah Jack. It's Monday. What's the time again?
9 p.m.
9 p.m. So we got emancipatory media out there that people need to check into. And close, I'm gonna give one tiny pushback on this idea about the spook, right? And when you say it's fresh on you, so you know. I think sometimes we have generalized spook by I am radical in my ideology, in my thinking, in my beliefs, and I'm working in corporate America, and I'm just not revealing that while I work there quietly, right, and get that. But underneath the undercurrents, I'm bubbling, right? That book was about a brother who was planning.
Yes, sir.
Plotting and planning revolution.
Yes, sir.
Right? So he was going in strategically to get specific information to train and teach
working class
poor people how to have in particular urban style guerrilla warfare. And so I only just put that out there because we've been talking about it, and I do want us to change that trajectory of how we see that. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, because you what you all talking about the spook? Do you all think that actually when the riots happened in the 60s and the 70s, that there was an element of that? I suspect.
You talking about Black Liberation Army?
Well, not just them, but
were people influenced by?
Yeah, there was element of
writing?
people that did what he wrote about.
Well, Geronimo J. Jackson is a good example of that.
Actually,
Geronimo practice is a good example of. So that's why even when you said earlier, now if Baba Smalls would have painted that kind of as the push for people joining me, I didn't see it, so I can't speak to it.
That was part of it.
Push for it.
He did mention that.
I think that's the only reason
they should learn
to go into the military.
He gave an example that they out here shooting each other and they don't really know how to use the weapon. But he said at least they'll learn how to use the weapon.
You can learn that without going to the military.
But listen,
yeah.
So again, scientifically, do you need to be a part of murdering African children to learn how to shoot? That's what you have to ask.
You can't separate the two. You can't separate what the military
do you need to feel the child sex trafficking for the white elite in black and indigenous countries. Like, the cost is just too high. Like there's no, you could learn how to throw darts and do guerrilla warfare. I mean, now I agree though, because there was underground elements. Right?
That's what I'm asking.
And there could,
I suspect that
could be, but even think about this.
Wasn't just out of the area.
Think about this. I plan on posting it tomorrow. There's a clip where Amilcar Cabral is saying that, and it caught me because I never heard him speak English before. Yeah, and he said we regular people who fighting this revolution, this war, this like. And when it's over, when we win, we'll go back to being farmers, being, who we are. Like, these were people who went and got trained in something. When you look at Ernesto Che Guevara, who was, a medical student, who got, seen the cause, sign me up and, learn in the process. And then in his learning, he went to other countries to train them. Yeah. But it didn't have to go into a formal standing military of an imperialist nation to get that.
But I think that's what's important too, because Amilcar Cabral will talk about how important culture is.
Yes, from a whole different.
But he ain't gonna talk about culture in the Guma.
Yeah.
Or
Farrakhan. I think it's important, and I will say that. I think for me, if you want to learn how culture is applicable to our struggle right now, study Amilcar and his position on how struggle factors in to the revolution. Right. Because he said, no, I'm not trying to be, he's on the continent saying, I'm not trying to be us 2,000 years ago. I'm not trying to go bang fast. That's not what I'm talking about when I say culture. But it's the decolonization. It's what he's talking about culture. What's left after you get rid of all of your colonizers' ideas, views, education, everything. The thing that you're left with is who you are. And then you build from there and supply what you need. But that's the first wave is to decolonize, get rid of everything you have learned from an outside source. Because even when they was telling him about Cuba and following that, he was like, this revolution ain't no cookie cut. I can't just go take this is a whole different geography. This is different people, different. Like, we don't have what they have. They got mountains and hills that we don't have. Like, this is not. I can't just. I have to do that. You can study right here. So I do think to study Amilcar Cabral and that aspect of culture is critically important. So I appreciate you, you brothers, taking the time to have this dialogue. I for me, this was the only reason why it's recorded is to begin to do my part to record thoughts, ideas that we have for another generation that can come behind. And I'm not talking about, sometimes we do have these iconic figures and we stuck right there. But they're brothers and sisters right next door, right down the street in your hometown. And you should connect with them. You should study with them. You should organize with them. And this is a process of helping people know who they are, but also is this a part of me recording conversations that I have with my comrades and my brothers. So again, so my children can come back and go. And when they hear me, you can see them old VHS tapes we look back last time. But imagine when it's this that they click and play on and go, oh, now it adds to the living library.
I want to be free. I want you to be free. I want us to be a self-governing people, not having to ask the white man or anybody for anything. All normal, healthy human beings want to be self-governing and self-determining. I want to have a black power. I want to have a black government. When I say black power, I'm talking about black freedom. I'm talking about big lip freedom. I'm talking about broad nose freedom. I'm talking about nappy hair freedom. I'm talking about boombox on your shoulder freedom. I'm talking about black